establish a multipolar world. And since 2000, Africa has joined the momentum. Second, there is unfortunately a very large flux in some of the global governance organs which are supposed to provide some of the solutions we need, like trade, so we can trade our way out of poverty, or a deal on climate change, which is a victim of international politics. That means Africa must more and more look upon herself for some of the key solutions. I'll come to this in a minute. But I want to observe, as you said, Carlos, that Africa entered a new millennium in 2000 with a new stride of confidence. With the exception of countries at war or emerging from war, economic performance has remained strong. Indeed, Africa's economic performance is now back to the level at which it was in 2008 before the collapse of Lehman Brothers. At the turn of the millennium, Africa's GDP was 600 billion. Today it is 2.2 trillion, 4 times. Adjusted for inflation, Africa's GDP has doubled in 10 years. For sub-Saharan Africa alone as well, if you adjust for inflation, the economic size is double. Per capita GDP has tripled, or 40% if you adjust for inflation. In other words, the sleeping giant is on its way. The world is now abandoning the sometimes patronizing look of Africa. The debilitating narrative of Africa and our whole litany of problems has given way to a rising Africa. Our continent now offers the highest risk-adjusted return on investment, and our economic managers are doing a good job. So, as we go forward, what are the issues we must look at carefully? The first place to begin is what is happening in the global economy. The global economy has ground to a halt. It is now the emerging markets supporting the global economy. But if their markets to Europe shrink, they are looking at stimulating domestic demand. China in particular is putting all the stops to stimulate the internal consumption. Now, as we go forward, there are 3 other issues we have to look into. Indeed, the global economy, the mega trends, and then how we finance our development. The last 50 years have been remarkable, eventful journey for Africa. Africa faces in the next 50 a complex landscape, but she also has many opportunities. Provided we do the right thing, this could truly be Africa's hour. I thank you for the opportunity.
Excellency, Chairperson of the African Union, Excellencies, Heads of States and Government, both present and former, Excellency, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. Today marks the 50th anniversary of the Organization of African Unity, a jubilee that signals the rebirth of the African continent. As we sit on the threshold of this historical moment, it is necessary that we not only reflect on the revolutionary gains that we have made as a people, but that we also architect a way forward for the sons and daughters who are the motive force of this rebirth. Africa today is better than Africa yesterday, primarily because of the progressive role that the OAU and the AU have played in the stabilization of the continent. Over the last 50 years, the AU has taken decisive positions on a number of questions, positions which have positively shaped the aspirations of the continent and its people. It is no accident of history that when the OAU was founded here in Ethiopia 50 years ago, only 37 of the 53 national states then had their independence. Today, almost all states are independent, with the AU intervening progressively on those that are still waging a political struggle. With these very positive gains noted, we must also acknowledge the fact that there remain some challenges facing the continent in general and the young people in particular, who constitute a great majority of the African population. Young people on the continent are on the receiving end of systematic inequalities and all the challenges that are a product of this onslaught. These include unemployment, lack of access to education, lack of proper healthcare facilities, as well as exclusion from institutions that govern the continent. However, all these challenges are not impossible to overcome. With the necessary political will and commitment from African people, including the youth in the diaspora, who are a potential critical mass in terms of skills and knowledge investment due to their exposure and access to education and other vital resources. Vision 2063 that seeks to annihilate these challenges can be realized. Our vision for 2063 as young people of the African continent follows track that of the founding fathers of the OAU 50 years ago to work towards the creation of a united, democratic, prosperous Africa. In 2063, we shall not have an Africa that is tangled in the draconian web of neocolonialism. The youth of today is committed to waging an active battle in defense of African resources to benefit its own people.
You're an African. So don't care where you come from, as long as you're a black man, you're an African. Don't mind your nationality, you've got the identity of an African.
Prime Minister of Ethiopia and Chairman of the African Union, heads of state and government past and present, Chair of the AU Commission, Dr. Zuma, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. In response to your gracious invitation, my deep African roots impelled me to begin this contribution to the panel presentation with music. But it is not only blacks who are Africans. Since it is now clearly established that the first migrants came from Mother Africa, the anthropologist Spencer Wells has gone even further down the road than the musical giant Peter Tosh, to whom we just listened. Spencer Wells once wrote, "Every one of us has migrant blood running through our veins. We all have African great-great-great-grandmothers who lived approximately 150,000 years ago. So in a sense, the African diaspora covers the whole world. We of the Caribbean, North and South America, who belong to the African family, need not go beyond the 17th century to trace our indisputable genealogical ancestry. Our DNA is indelibly and unmistakably African. This must be so, for the most heinous crime against humanity resulted in the cruel abduction across the Middle Passage and banished the sons and daughters of Africa to foreign shores. I want to speak out today on the African identity and the united force of its diaspora, and I do so within the excellent paper you have produced, Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance. Marcus Garvey, an apostle of Pan-Africanism, wrote in Negro Right World, the need to fight for rights and justice for Africans at home and abroad. He traced the beautiful history of Africa and highlighted its capacity to create another that will astonish the world. It is that capacity we must generate today to fulfill Marcus Garvey's prophecy. During this golden year, we must pursue the mission on which our ancestors embarked. The last 50 years have been momentous for the peoples of Africa and its diaspora. The battle against imperial tyranny has been won. The scourge of the apartheid regime has been eradicated. The frontline states have witnessed their own emancipation. We in the Caribbean now have 14 sovereign states, which along with Haiti